Hello and welcome to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. This is a platform where we get curious about all things gender, sex and sexuality, as well as feminism, the inclusive kind, mental health and kink, and all that makes us humans unique and diverse. From body positivity to body dysmorphia, it's all welcome here. Come with us on a journey of inclusion, acceptance and respect. I'm your host, Esther Lemons. I identify as a cisgender woman and my pronouns are she and her. In this episode, I am speaking to Kit Rackley, an ex-geography high school teacher now working as an education and program officer for a non-profit that promotes and facilitates collaboration between the climate and energy sectors. Kit's pronouns are they and them, and they identify as genderfluid, transfeminine, non-binary, and demigirl. Find out what that means to Kit in this episode. We also talk about labels, gender presentation, parenting roles, their journey of gender discovery, USA thrift stores, San Francisco, Harry Potter, feminism, and privilege. It was recorded on the 5th of February 2019. Now let's get into the episode. Hello, welcome.
Hello there.
What's your name?
My name is Kit Rackley, and my pronouns are they, them.
Okay. And so, how do you identify?
I identify as under the trans umbrella, as a non-binary person. The first way I identified myself actually was gender fluid, before I identified myself as non-binary or transgender, but I'll come back to that later, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
I kind of, when I was trying to get to know what my gender was, I found this Facebook social group. And then they had a kind of a lexicon, like a glossary of terms, and there was a huge long list of labels. And I kind of went down that list and thought to myself, which one of these kind of feel like me? So this was after I kind of discovered I was gender fluid.
Yeah.
And the other two terms I think kind of closely fit me as well is trans feminine and maybe demigirl. Demigirl means you kind of sort of feel like you're a girl, but not quite. Kind of like if you were to imagine a spectrum, maybe halfway in between androgynous and a girl. But being gender fluid, I kind of feel like the best way to describe it is orbit around demigirl. So I kind of sometimes feel quite feminine, really like a girl. Sometimes I feel quite androgynous, and rarely feel quite masculine. Okay. So it's tricky, but I try to have a lot of fun with it if I can as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, how long have you been sort of thinking about gender in this way, and when did you sort of come out as such?
Yeah. It's, for me, in terms of recognizing myself as being transgender, that has been a very recent thing. So I'm 36, I'm 37 this year. And really, it was only within the last kind of 12 to 15 months where I kind of like felt I identified as transgender in this way. But for a few years before that, I really felt like something wasn't quite right with how, with my gender. I kind of felt I was gender questioning, should I say. So I kind of always felt that I never felt like I was a typical guy, in quotes. And that feeling of not feeling typically stretches back even to when I was very young. So it's been quite a gradual process, but with the realization really only coming around about a year-ish ago.
Okay, so that's very new. Yeah.
So in terms of kind of, the eye-opening, penny-dropping moment, that's been very, very recent.
Okay. Wow. All right. And so, how does, sort of looking at all the sort of labels you've gone through and everything, what does that mean to you, and how do you express that?
Yeah, well, that's a really big question. So I suppose if we take one label at a time, for a start, I think for me, labels are both kind of helpful and unhelpful. In my personal opinion, and I can't obviously speak for all people who identify as transgender, but from my personal opinion, I feel that if we get to the stage where a label is completely unnecessary and the only label you need is the label me or myself, then we've got there, because everybody's just an individual.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of how society may see me as a person, that's where labels not only help me to identify myself, but maybe to explain to other people kind of where I fit from their social or cultural point of view.
Yeah.
So if we take those, obviously transgender is a kind of more clear cut one, that I'm quite a scientific and literal person. So for me, the definition of transgender, someone who does not identify with the gender they are when they were born, they were assigned when they were born. Well, I therefore identify as transgender purely by definition.
Yeah.
So because I was assigned male at birth, but I don't, the vast majority of the time, feel I'm male. So therefore transgender. So then to kind of go underneath that umbrella, the next one is non-binary. So as I said with my labels before, kind of feeling sort of like mostly like a girl and being gender fluid on that side of the spectrum. That's clearly non-binary. So so that kind of fits there, and I kind of like the fact that you know, non-binary is not just a term to say you don't fully identify as male or female as according to what society puts in the male and female box, but there's this whole range in between. Yeah. And I personally think that actually the vast majority of the world's population are probably non-binary, if you really think about it.
Right.
They kind of, you don't really have, it's very rare to have like a complete, what society feels is a complete girly girl, feminine girl, ultra femme girl, and you know, a big, tough, masculine, ultra alpha male. Those two caricatures of binary gender, I feel, are actually quite rare that they exist in real life.
Totally. And that's what they are, really, caricatures.
Exactly. So I don't feel, and I mean this in a nice way in respect to other non-binary people, because, but I don't feel being non-binary should be or is very special at all, because I actually feel that if people think about it, no one's really binary. And if they are binary, fine. You know, that's how they feel and they identify. So then those two kind of labels kind of make sense, because they're kind of almost literal definitions. But then you get into the ones which are a little bit trickier, I find, to explain to other people. So being gender fluid, I think, is quite difficult for other people to kind of grasp, because I don't think people like change and fluctuations very, very well, or they can't handle that very, very well.
I think people just want to kind of put you in a box, like whatever you say, like if this is how you identify and this is how you present that. And they kind of want to see that all the time, I guess. So they get used to it and maybe get an idea of what to, you know, what words to use, and get used to the identity of you. But yeah, I think anything fluid is going to be like, I think they maybe feel a bit threatened or just confused, really, like what's it going to be today, and what am I, you know. I think a lot of people like maybe are worried about offending transgender and non-binary people. I know I have a friend who's, bless him, he's in his 70s, and he's worried that when he speaks to a transgender or gender fluid person, that they might change their pronouns in the middle of a conversation, and he's going to offend them. You know, that's just, he's genuinely concerned about that.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I think a lot of people are too hung up on not trying to offend other people. And without going off piece to your question, I can come back to it later. But I think that being sensitive to a transgender person's experience, because you don't know what person's experience is and how that might make them feel, like in terms of like triggering events and things like that might make them feel. But I think we need to kind of be a little bit more receptive to genuine attempts of understanding of other people. And I can come back to that a bit later and speaking about my family. But but I think in terms of being gender fluid, the best thing to do really is to give an example which maybe anybody can identify with. So when I, for example, I love playing sports, and I'm a footballer. I actually play for a veterans team on a Sunday. And when I'm surrounded in that environment with, I can only assume are all cisgendered males. I mean, I don't know them all personally. Who knows? It's kind of an assumption, isn't it? I'm even assuming it. But when I get competitive and when I'm surrounded by that in that environment, and you know, I feel quite masculine. And it's almost like I can feel the testosterone in my body, because you're kind of, that's what sports are. They're an evolution, aren't they, of kind of that primal warfare, kind of going to battle with another tribe kind of thing. So it's, I mean, I don't go onto the football pitch and start chopping people down. So that's an example of I mean, some people who listen to this might turn around and say, well, how can you label that as gender fluid? That's just you getting pumped up for a football match. But for me, that is gender, because of society, what feels, and then an extension of that, which we can have a whole discussion about, is then like girls can't play football, that kind of nonsense kind of thing. So, but then when I do things with my children, like read them stories or do some artwork with them, then I kind of feel a lot more nurturing, a lot more what's the best way to say it? So that kind of like motherly kindness thing coming out, and society has boxed that as a feminine thing. Even though why not call it what it is, right? Why does it have to be gendered? So you can be strong and I don't know, and you can be nurturing, and why does it have to be masculine or feminine? Absolutely, and that, which is why it goes back to the point I made, that in an ideal world there would be no labels. You would just be you, because just human, right? Just a human being. And so kind of all these traits which society have called a feminine or motherly traits, I kind of then come out as well. But it's so you see, gender fluidity is a little bit harder to explain, but it really is a case of deep down inside you feel one way or another that society would expect a female person, or a feminine person to act, or a male. So again, it's all about how people perceive you rather than how you feel inside. So, so that leaves the other two terms, which I think a little bit more clear cut, but trans feminine. So the term trans, as listeners may be aware, is a Latin term. It's only the use of it, the modern use of it as transgender is what, and cisgender, what people have contentions about, have issues about. But actually those two prefixes have been around for a very long time. So cis is just Latin for on the side of, I mean, you identify with, so cisgender, you identify with the gender you were assigned that, and transgender, as I would use as an ex-geography teacher, like transatlantic, on the other side of the Atlantic. So transgender, the other side of the gender. So trans feminine, as you could probably then guess, is I'm expected to be masculine because I was assigned male at birth, but I actually most of the time act quite feminine. So therefore trans feminine is this the label for that. And then finally, demigirl, as I've already explained before, it's a case of sort of feeling like a girl, wanting to do what people perceive are girly things and dress up in girly ways. So they're all the kind of labels. But so people might listen to this and say, well, you don't need those labels. You just dress how you want to do. You act how you want to do. You're just a human being. And I totally agree. That's where we need to get to. And I think the day that we stop labeling people, it doesn't matter if it's gender, race, whatever it is, the day we get to that point where labels are no longer necessary, I think we then finally reach equality, in my personal opinion. In an ideal world. In an ideal world. So I mean, I was just admiring your very colourful skirt. Thank you.
So is this how you, I mean, describe a little bit about how you like to express yourself? Yeah, and it's people may have heard that sometimes gender identity doesn't always reflect gender presentation. And that also throws people who don't understand about it a little bit off, as like, okay, so you're feeling androgynous but you're wearing a skirt, or you're feeling feminine but you're wearing, you've got a buzz cut haircut. So again, it goes back to the whole thing about people should just dress how they dress. So what I'm wearing at the moment, I'm wearing a lovely long red skirt that goes all the way down to my ankles, but the sequins unfortunately keep dropping off, and it's like if I go from, you leave a trail. I leave a trail. So if I get lost in the woods, I'll be able to find my way back out with all these sequins I drop on the floor. So it's lovely when the light shines in it, because then it actually makes the ceilings glitter and the walls glitter, and when the sun bounces off it, it's my work colleagues here quite like it actually, and so I'm wearing this long skirt. I've got a nice top on which has got a lace
lace arms, and I really like lace. Like I've got lace dresses and lace tops, and I think that's still kind of my favorite style. And I've got a work blouse and a cardigan on top of that because it is a little bit chilly.
Yes.
And probably the most obvious thing that if people were to see me now is my red hair, my kind of long red hair, and I've got a whole story behind that which I can tell.
Yeah, please do.
But so it's just to describe it, it's kind of past, it's kind of up to upper arm length. I've got it tied back at the moment, but sometimes I have it down. Sometimes I kind of partially tie it, and it's kind of, I don't know, would you describe it fiery red, kind of reddy brown, maybe?
Yeah, sort of a little
bit.
Yeah.
And it's
sort of in between kind of the red and orangey.
Brick red.
Amber, not amber, oh God, what is it? Brick red, maybe.
And it's got bangs.
Yeah.
So, which I try and wear kind of like over my eyebrows, kind of that's the right length.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it's quite fun to kind of shift it a little bit, so people think like I've either had my hair cut or I've let it grow a bit too long. But that's what I meant about the fun of it a little bit earlier.
Toes, yeah.
And I like to wear some light makeup, like particularly eyeshadow and mascara. And I've got my nails painted with. Thanks to an ex-student of mine, I've got this set of Harry Potter nail polish. Ooh. And I'm wearing actually a combination of the Gryffindor and the Ravenclaw one.
I love it. Awesome.
So the Gryffindor's is like this deep red. Yeah, that's like sort of chipped away. So kind of the lower half of my nails. I kind of like were red, but I've then gone over that with the Gryffindor, the Ravenclaw blue. So you've got the kind of this purple kind of gradient.
Yes.
And that's what I mean by like having fun with my gender presentation. It's like, it's almost like catching up for lost time, the way that I would, like to have been able to present myself and just, of course. And I it's not so much now because I'm very comfortable with presenting the way I want to present, but I used to be exceptionally jealous of the line of clothing available to women compared to the line of clothing available to men in terms of, what they're labeled in the shops. And then I was thinking, why can't I wear something a bit more colourful, a little bit more flowery, a little bit more, even just not just the patterns, but the styles as well, low cut, high cut, V-necks, drop, whatever, turtlenecks. And it's a bit of a shame really that the way that our culture and our society deems that men have this blander kind of fashion spectrum.
It's all like navy and
it's like we've already got wearing like shirts and jeans, and that's not to disgrace or discredit any of the cisgendered men out there who are rocking it.
Exactly.
Absolutely rocking it. As I say, you want to wear what you feel you want to wear, but and I have full respect for people who walk into work here and they're wearing this kind of almost like flowery shirt, and I just like they feel it. So brilliant.
I mean, I wear a lot of black, so sometimes I like blacks before, but I like it.
So it's the story of my hair actually does combine quite well with the whole recognizing that I was transgender.
Okay.
So to kind of give some context, I was a high school teacher for 13 years in the area, in the local area of Norwich, and through various reasons I needed a break. There was family reasons, personal reasons, professional reasons why. The main reason is because I just had, got 2 young children as well. I just needed to kind of step back from that really intense kind of working environment, and I needed to rebalance my work life balance. And with my partner being from the United States, and we have a lot of friends and family over the United States, we decided to take a whole year off and spend it in the United States of America. Okay. So through our contacts, I managed to get placements in certain places around the United States. And one of these placements I went to was in San Francisco, which I now count my second home, as I'm about to elaborate. But so I spent 2.5 months in San Francisco working at this incredible science museum called the Exploratorium. And our connection at the Exploratorium was my wife's cousin called Kate, who's one of the most friendly, charming, larger than life, sunbeams everywhere person who has love for everybody. And she has all these connections to different people in the community. So, it doesn't matter what color skin they are, whether they're transgender or whatever the community, she had contacts with it. So through working at the Exploratorium where she worked, which is a very liberal, open-minded place, they would even do exhibits about the science of sex, for example. So they had this wonderful After Dark, which is an adult, where they open it just for the over 18s, exhibit about the science of sex and sexual pleasure and everything like that. And it was amazing because it was just, it was like, there was no taboo whatsoever. It's like, we're going to treat you like human beings. So it was all good because you had like Victorian, you could dissect vibrators. You got Victorian sexual implements. There was scientific talks about orgasms and things like that. I'm just setting the scene of how open-minded and liberal and progressive this place is. And the staff at the Exploratorium were of all shapes, sizes and colours and demographics. So that was quite incredible. And they were all completely open with themselves. So you had transgender people, you had non-binary people, you had people from all kinds of ethnic backgrounds and racial backgrounds. A very high percentage of women were working there, which was fantastic because the science is seen as a very male-led thing, but the Exploratorium seemed to turn that on its head, which was incredible. So I felt so at home there. And the first thing that I saw when I went into the Exploratorium, into the staff room, was this small little basket of pronoun badges. So there was pronoun badges with he, they, and she on them, and I asked about it, and I was just curious. I said, oh yeah, you can just pick one of them up. And the first time I actually questioned myself with what pronoun badge I wanted to pick up, because at that stage I was still going by he. But I was kind of flirting with the idea of that because, as I said, I was already sort of questioning my gender by that point. And so I actually ended up picking up the they badge because it felt more right. So anyway, I spent a little bit of time in San Francisco hanging out with Kate and her friends, hanging out at the Exploratorium, getting to know the people there. And then the language that they were using, just like it was completely normal, like opened my eyes, because they started to use language that I didn't really hear before, like non-binary, like gender fluid, like, trans feminist, things like that. And I would say, I'm so sorry, but can you tell me what that means? And then that's when it occurred to me, hey, they're speaking right to my soul. They're speaking right to my heart. It's like a conversation that I was diving in like the deep end of a pool, of a really fresh, cool, pool, and that really invigorating like first morning swim that you have. And it just felt, and then you come up for air and you think, oh, this is just incredible, and that's how it felt. It just went right to my soul. And then I started to do things where I was like, okay, this makes more sense. I'm going to start exploring this now. So then the thrift stores in the United States are incredible. Thrift stores, charity shops, basically. If you take a charity shop here in the United Kingdom, you need to multiply that by about 10 in terms of size, range. They just have there's this one thrift store I went to in San Francisco, which was 2 floors. Wow. And I would go there and I would nervously try and pick out a blouse rather than a shirt, or some skinny jeans rather than baggy jeans, or leggings rather than, something that would be deemed more feminine or androgynous, more feminine. And I would be shaking. But the people were absolutely lovely. Oh, that would look really, really good on you, or something or words like this. And
that's great.
My best memory is of this gentleman at this reclamation store called Urban Ore in Berkeley. And I have to give them a mention because they're lovely people there. And I picked out this kind of, now at the time it was really daring of me. Now I kind of laugh about it, but it's kind of something to go out clubbing with. So it was kind of a corsety kind of thing, and it had cups, and it was kind of false leather, and it zipped up at the front. So it was kind of a bit provocative kind of thing, I don't know, what's goth, emo, whatever you want to say. Now for me, that was a kind of a definitely outwardly purchase. But I went to the shop and I was like, can I get this please? And the guy behind the till said, oh, is that for you? And I was like, yes. And he was like, I so want to see you in that. You need to put yourself in it, take a picture and come back and show me. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Not what you were expecting.
Not what I was expecting. But that was the kind of reaction that I was getting. sometimes, reactions and what else was lukewarm. So I'm not going to say this was like amazingly gender euphoric all the time, but it was enough to give me confidence. It was enough to give me high. It was enough to give me a drive to keep going. And at the times when I did have a little bit of a setback, I could get through it. And because I had that newfound confidence in myself. Yeah. And so now I've got all this wardrobe now. I went to San Francisco saying I'm not, I'm only traveling in one rucksack. I need to make sure. What did I end up doing? Is I end up like doubling, maybe even tripling my wardrobe.
Go back to the thrift shop, buy a new suitcase. Yeah.
And I was staying in this RV in Berkeley, so this was problematic. But then I thought, right, I've started now. Got some jewelry, I've got some clothing, but there is one thing missing, and that is a decent wig, a hair.
Yeah. So
now I am going to this shop in San Francisco, again, nervous as anything. And there's no real there wasn't really a wig shop per se. Well, I'll retract that. There were wig shops in San Francisco, but they were very upmarket and they would probably be charging $100, $200 for wigs. Now, this is my year off. I'm not earning any income. So I had to go for the best value wig that I can, which will last, but not costing me too much money. So I end up going into a fancy dress shop, but they advertised that they had a whole range of wigs of various different budget levels. So everything from $10, $20 up to $200. So I thought that would be probably the best way. Again, very nervous when I was, and there was no problem. The person there was like, okay, let's try on different things. The only stipulation is that you have to buy a wig cap for $3 because you can't be trying on wigs. And so matter of fact, all that kind of and then we went through all these different things together. I tried blonde curly wigs, short wigs, brunette wigs. But then when I put this one on, as described earlier, with the red hair with the bangs and the past my shoulders, I just looked to myself in the mirror, and the shop assistant looked at me and went, "Yeah, that's you."
Just clicked.
That is you. And
it's kind of like getting a wand at, Ollivanders.
Wand at Ollivanders, yeah. You go back to the Harry Potter, yeah.
The wig chooses you. Yes.
Oh, if anybody's wondering, by the way, I'm a Hufflepuff. I just thought that.
Okay.
So, and then that was it. That was like my hair. And the first time I wore that out, I went to one of the first time I went out. I went to Kate's boyfriend's album. He was in a band, and they were releasing their album, their pilot album. So, and I just went out and I rocked it. I had red fake leather trousers, leggings on. I had the hair on. I had this kind of like lace dress that went past down to my knees. And I had that, and I just completely rocked it. And the amount of
it must have felt so good.
It felt amazing. It felt absolutely amazing. And I definitely, and coming away from San Francisco was probably the hardest thing ever. Because Kate obviously knew me. I was, she's my cousin-in-law. But I felt safe exploring my gender there because I was quite anonymous. No one really knew me apart from Kate. So there was a completely fresh, clean slate with people getting to know me. I knew I wouldn't be there forever. I was only there for a couple of months, and then I'll be moving on. So, the level of risk was very low. And the place where I was working on a placement, was encouraging me. They were saying, you've got, you will get full support here with whatever you choose to do. And, and then I started to go into work a little bit more like where, expressing my gender how I wanted to. Although the one regret was I never went into the Exploratorium wearing my wig. Which is probably the one regret. But I did change my name while I was at the Exploratorium. So, I changed from my birth name, my dead name, to Kit. So as I'm now known as. So, but they were like, okay, you're called Kit now. Fine. And then, that's it.
Registered.
And then, it's just and then, so I felt like I've left a piece of my soul back in San Francisco. And it's been, but I'll always think of it very, very fondly. And I know no place is perfect. I know that some, if this podcast has got all the way over to the West Coast of the United States, I know that some people over there may not there are some things that I didn't discover in San Francisco that maybe if I was there longer, I might have had a few setbacks in it. There was a couple of ones that I experienced, but again, as I said before, the confidence I was having and being surrounded by lovely, open-minded, affirming people who just let you be who you were, was the most powerful feeling I've felt in a very long time.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it.
Oh, that's so awesome. So how's it been coming back and obviously, sharing it with your family, and how have they reacted, and, how's that been?
So,
how old are the kids?
My kids are 4.5 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
So the eldest is getting used to it. He's very inquisitive though.
Yeah.
But because he's known me, he's gone through his cognitive development with me being daddy, with me being he.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went away for the year, and of course these changes have happened quite rapidly. He's kind of, in terms of the language he uses, he's been struggling with that.
Mm-hmm.
But really, in terms of everything else, it's just like, you're just being daddy. And I still use this again may confuse people, because I still use the terms daddy, and I still call myself a father.
Okay.
I can't really fully explain why that feels right.
But it does to you.
But it does feel right.
Like
I am my child's father and their dad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite, I don't really know why that fits, but it does. Again,
mm-hmm.
They're labels.
Totally.
So my eldest is kind of questioned a lot what I do, but he's exceptionally open-minded. He's only 4.5. We try and
curious about.
Yeah, and he does come up to me sometime and go, "Oh, I've just drawn an elephant. Oh, that's really good. It's a non-binary elephant."
I love that.
So he's doing, and then sometimes he does slip in and say but he has actually corrected other people when they've not used the correct pronouns. So my daddy is not a he, my daddy is a they. So, but
try and say that fast 3 times.
Yeah. But we don't pressure, my wife and I don't pressure our children whatsoever. We try and let things go organic and natural. We're not forcing anyone or any kind or any non-gender on them whatsoever. We like them to find their own path, and we let them discover things themselves. So, and then the only thing we can do is that when they question kind of my gender, as I say, we say, well, this is how it is. This is just matter of fact. Daddy is trans, and he doesn't understand what transgender is really. But we try and use, children's books and things like that to help with that.
Yeah.
So that's my eldest. My youngest, well, he's only 2. He hasn't really experienced, absorbed anything except his immediate existence.
Yeah.
So, I don't have any memory beyond, earlier than 4 or 4.5. So I'm just exactly who I think it is. And he's starting to talk a lot more now. He uses pronouns on himself. So he says he to referring to himself, but he hasn't used pronouns for other people yet. He's not got that level of language yet. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens when he does develop that language to identify other people through their pronouns, whether he'll say they or whatever. Or whether even he'll use the pronoun she, because I do, wear my hair quite a lot. So that would be really interesting. But that's how we approach it at home, as through intrigue, why do you say that? Where did that come from? Or what makes you think that? Very kind of critical thinking, kind of way of looking at things.
But anything is okay to talk
absolutely.
about. Yeah. And what about your wife?
So my wife has been absolutely incredible. I would admit it's been tough for her. She would admit it's been tough for her, and I don't want to. She can speak for herself, so I won't. Obviously, I won't go into too much detail.
Totally.
But
that's another episode, perhaps.
That's maybe another episode, and at her prerogative, of course. But I think what is most certainly safe to say is that if you can imagine, we've been together for a long, long time since 2003. So of course. She's got to know me a certain way. Yeah. In terms of my personality, who I am as an individual, none of that has really changed at all. But when you have a partner that you spend all your time with and you share everything with, then particularly the physical appearance and the changes is what quite tough.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I really hand on heart say I couldn't have hoped, for a better partner in this respect. And I would be very trying to see if I can word this. It's not trying to word it sensitive. I'm trying to word it accurately.
Mm-hmm.
But although my identity is me and I can't change who I am, I don't want to be insensitive to the way that she is feeling.
Yeah.
And this is what I meant by what I said earlier, that I think that, depending on the individual, a transgender person's individual experiences, because we don't know, what really hurts them. But I think we've all got to try and do our very, very best to appreciate, to try and see the genuine attempts of our family, of our partners.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to my wife, for example, I know 100% I've got her back, or she's there with me, supporting me. There's things that she's got to come to terms with, but all the effort is genuine. Her love is absolute. And therefore I have to be sensitive and supportive of her going through these changes, because it was very sudden, what happened. I mean, she always knew that I wasn't, because she likes me for that reason of not being a typical bloke and all this kind of stuff. She wouldn't have got with me in the first, because that's me. That's all been the case. But then, so it's mainly the kind of the gender presentation is what's more of
is how you express
how I'm expressing my gender, and it's so I've got to be mindful and supportive of that. And because I know she's being supportive, because I know she's being genuine, and I'm trying my very, very best to be patient and not being judgmental of her. I just think that our relationship is worth too much. I can't change who I am. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to put myself back in the box. So the challenge is how we're going to both move forward. But I love her dearly, and I can't think of. I'm very lucky. Let's just say I'm exceptionally lucky to have the family that I have, and home is definitely one of my safe spaces. So and I know that not everybody is fortunate like that. And my heart and my thoughts do go out to people who I wouldn't, obviously the people who've had flat out rejection and hostility. I have a level of privilege where I've not experienced that. The people I am closest to or I work with, I have not experienced that outright rejection and hostility, and I can't imagine what that would be like. But my thoughts also go out to the people where they can feel it in the air. There's that tone, that monochrome kind of shade to everything, where when they're in the presence of their loved ones, they can feel something's not quite right. So my heart also goes out to those kind of people. I've had, without naming names or saying who they are, because I don't feel I have the right to say who these people are, but I kind of had that feeling with some people that there's there's a bit of staleness in the air. So, and I know how dreadful that can feel. So to be consistently living with that, my heart really do go out to people who have to experience that day in, day out. And of course, and then the extreme where people completely get cut off from their loved ones because of who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wow. That's a fascinating story.
Thank you.
And a really positive one, which is wonderful.
And I really, there's a couple of reasons why I like to tell my story. I mean, I call myself an activist. I've always been an environmental activist. It's almost an extension of being a geography teacher for so long. But and a feminist, because for me, those two things are like, why wouldn't you look after the place where you're living? Why wouldn't you have equality amongst all people and all genders? It just doesn't compute in my brain why that would be anything else. So, but then of course now LGBT, I classified myself as an LGBT ally, without realizing I was also transgender. But so that's only intensified my kind of my activism, and people who read my Facebook posts, who see my Twitter feed, you know, I'm at risk of just becoming an agenda, really.
Yeah.
Because it's all politics, it's all kind of this activism and things like that. But, you know, if they don't like it, they can unfollow me and whatever.
Yeah, but it's also part of your self-expression.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. And as I've said, I have an immense privilege. I'm very, very lucky. I'm white, I'm Western European. On the grand scheme of things, if you were to rank the UK and on a list of people being quite accepting of these things, we know that there's still problems in our society, and there's there are massive issues we need to overcome. But really, we're in a relatively safe, relatively accepting place. Yeah. And I'm in Norwich, which is again would be at top of that kind of list. Yeah. And I work here, for a company at the University of East Anglia. So I understand that I'm exceptionally lucky that I can walk through these doors here at work, and everybody is completely it's like, oh, I love, wow, that's a nice, lovely dress, or you're wearing your hair out here. But they're treating me like a human being. They're not treating me any special because of being transgender. And the comments I've had from people here is it's like, we're so glad that you can be you here, because this is what we need. We need to have diversity of everybody, here. Absolutely. We need to have representation of different kinds of people, because that's what makes the world a richer place. And this is what the people here say to me. Mm-hmm. So I feel I need to use this privilege to, raise awareness. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to convince everybody. No, of course not. I mean, if people are still listening and they think I'm a crackpot, I can't do anything to change these people's minds. Yeah. I mean, there's a famous guy on TV, which we won't mention anything at all, but I'll definitely raise a vegan sausage roll for that person. But, there is nothing will convince people like that.
No, of course
that
not. No.
What we feel is real, what we feel is genuine, and we are not making it up. And it really is how other people see you. Yeah. And me trying to use terms like not passing as female, but being read as so using changing the terminology and putting it back onto other people, because I think you really do have to treat yourself with kindness and respect before you can, in order to allow yourself to become strong and confident in who you are. So the best piece of advice I could give others who are struggling with this, who are still in the closet, is don't give up. It is exceptionally hard, especially if you're surrounded by misunderstanding and hate, especially if it's coming from people you love, or you think you're questioning your own love because of how you're maybe the reaction of people you're surrounded with. Maybe it's at work, maybe it's at home, but you can surround yourself with people who make you feel the opposite. Yeah. So that's my biggest bit of advice, is to surround yourself with loving people who may not understand who exactly you are or what you're going through, but they're just willing, they just are very happy and supportive to let you get on with it. Treat you as a normal human being. That my work colleagues here, they're just fantastic. They just let me get on with it, be a human being, and I don't have that any feeling, that monochrome tenseness, bitterness in the air. There's nothing like that here. So I don't mind coming to work. Same at home. I love spending time with my wife and my children, because even though we still got some barriers to work through, I feel safe and I feel secure and I feel loved. And where sometimes if I don't feel like I can get that 100% at the home, I can still go out with some friends. I'm very close friends in the LGBT community that I just hang out with. There's the non-binary East Anglia group, for example, where you just surround yourself with people who know what it feels like. Yeah. Or Facebook social groups. I mean, they can get a little bit politic, a little bit heated, but there's some generally good social media support groups out there which accept everybody and just allow you to rant and put what you like, say a positive thing that's happened to you, a negative thing, but you'll be listened to and you'll be reacted to, and it may only be a like or a ha ha or an angry emoji reaction, whatever, but you're getting, you're getting validation and reaction. And that's just the biggest advice I can do, is just surround yourself with people who just allow you to be who you are.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I mean...
that was a pretty good ending, though. I was thinking.
It's,
yeah.
I talk a lot. Maybe that, I don't know whether that's the personality or the bane of being a teacher, but an ex-teacher.
It's all good, really. It's all about how you express yourself. So, yeah, let's leave it at that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for talking to me. You can find out more details on the website at 50shadesofgender.com/kit, where you can also read the transcript. And you can find out more about KIT on their website, geogramblings.com, and on Twitter at geogramblings. Thank you for listening to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. You can find us online at 50shadesofgender.com and on social media. If you like what we're doing here and you want to support us, you can do so by becoming a patron on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/50 Shades of Gender. We hope you will listen again. Until then, stay curious and open-minded.